Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Michael and Mom Talk Cancer. I am your host, Ashlee.
And I am her son, Michael.
We did a role reversal today.
Yes. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the mental struggles and how we coped from both our point of views.
As the mommy and the kid.
Yes. So I want to start off by saying being diagnosed with cancer in itself right away, just the first day, was already a mental struggle. And it was already something I knew was going to be a huge challenge mentally. And I remember speaking to the therapist because right away I knew I needed to be on top of my mental health during this treatment because I knew it was going to be very difficult.
And your hospital where Michael was treated, I have to say, it was pretty great because literally he was diagnosed and he was admitted like that night. Literally the next morning they had brought in like
a psychologist, a therapist, a child life specialist. They really cared for my mental health at Nicholas, and that was very important for me. So immediately when I was diagnosed with just leukemia and they didn't know exactly what kind I had, I was set up with a therapist. And I had my first telehealth session with her when I was sent home and awaiting my diagnosis, my official diagnosis. And then I knew I was going to have to start chemo one way or another, no matter what it was. And she was telling me that, there's going to be days when you're really weak. There's going to be days where you're not going to want to get out of bed. There's going to be days when you can't do what you want to do. And she was telling me things that other patients have done to cope with that time. And I was just sitting there like, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm active. Like, and chemo is going to make me nauseous and I'll lose my hair. But I'm still going to do all the things I love because I'm stronger than this. That just was not the truth. She was so right. And I really got humbled by chemotherapy, and immediately, right away, I was just weak and I couldn't do the things that I thought I was going to be able to do on treatment. For example, one of the main things that my doctor emphasized for me was quality of life, and that's why he put in a port for me instead of a PICC line so that I could go surfing on the days where my counts were actually good enough. I just didn't have the energy to go surf a lot of the times, and I was too weak to get out in the waves if they were literally over a foot. And I have this one memory of me surfing, actually. I remember going out in the lineup, and there was actually people I had known from before. I paddled out there bald and on a longboard and was barely able to catch any waves, and I had no balance, and it was literally 1 foot, and I was on a longboard, and I remember trying to catch a wave, and I would stand up and it would be so hard to keep my balance, and I would fall almost every single time. And I remember being in my head, like, going for the wave, thinking, I can catch this, I can go right, I can do a little turn, but all of a sudden I stand up, and I'm just not the same person I was before. Like, I'm not the same strength level I was before, not the same balance, not anything. And
this was literally a few weeks after I think you started chemo. I mean, I think it wasn't long after.
No, it wasn't long at all.
Yeah.
And it was so weird because I knew everybody was looking at me because, I had all these scars already on my back from the steroids. I was trying to surf, but I was with my mom and we were smiling. She would literally just like stand there because the waves were so small. She was able to stand, and we would just be out there like trying to surf, and I don't know. It was just difficult to go from surfing actual waves on a shortboard, doing turns, being a decent surfer, and then being so humbled just so quickly and looking like a complete kook, like a complete beginner out there just like falling on every wave. And then I remember one time I rode a wave successfully and just went straight down it, just stood up and rode it as well as I could, and I was so happy, but nobody else really understood how hard it was. And that was one of the biggest moments where I was just humbled. I was humbled, and
and it was for me. So going back, so when Michael was first diagnosed with leukemia, before we knew it was hepatosplenic lymphoma, and his doctor's amazing. When he told us about the diagnosis, he literally sat there in the room and he talked to us right before Michael was admitted, he was still in the outpatient, like he'd just woken up from the bone marrow biopsy. And he got to know Michael. And at first he said, you know what, tomorrow we're going to get a PICC line in. And if you don't know the difference between a PICC line and a port, it's just with a port you can get it wet. Like it's under the skin, so it can get wet. And a PICC line is kind of like an IV, and you can't get it wet, just basically. So he wanted to put the port because he could tell that for Michael, going in the ocean was going to be huge for him mentally. And that was amazing. But I remember that day that Michael is talking about, and Michael's a shortboarder. Okay, yeah, he can longboard, of course, but he gets on a shortboard and does turns, whatever, and goes down the wave, goes to the right, goes to the left. I'm the one that's on the longboard, like getting up and riding down the wave. And that day it was shallow, and I was standing there, and I was just praying. I was like, God, just let him stand up on my board and catch a wave. I knew how important it was for him, and it was so hard to see him struggling at the thing that made him the most happy. And like the whole reason he had the port was so he could do this. And I'm so grateful he did go in the ocean. He could. And there were a few times, right? I mean, I want to say 3 or 4 times we ended up in the ocean before your bone marrow transplant, and then you couldn't go in anymore. But
going in the ocean helped me a lot mentally, and also having the port, it allowed me to work out a little bit.
That's true.
And that was one of the biggest things for my mental health during, chemotherapy, and even after my transplant, was trying to be as active as possible. That helped me feel like myself, whether it was doing a no weights arm workout, or it was like lifting 11 pounds, or just something, doing a little workout. And it reminded me of how I felt before cancer. It reminded me of how I felt strong, and it made me feel like I was in control of something. Because one of the biggest things that was challenging for me mentally was there's nothing I can do to literally make myself healthier, or make the cancer go away, or make this go away. All I have control over is how I react to the situation and what I can do to cope. It's literally all about coping, and every single cancer patient knows that struggle mentally, because you just have to learn to try to do your best, just let things go, and that's very difficult. So for me, I had to learn to let go of wanting to control everything. I wanted to control my cancer. I wanted it to go away right away. I wanted to control how I felt. I wanted to control all these things, but one of the biggest lessons cancer taught me was just that I have to let go. I can't control anything. And working out and being physically active during treatment helped me so much mentally, because I felt in control of one thing. And it brought me joy, because you work out, you're active, you feel like yourself.
You get your endorphins flowing a little bit. It's like dancing for your mom.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is. And
it is.
It's true. It's a great release of stress.
It is, and it was very important to you. And everyone, it was great because his team of doctors and the psychologists and therapists, everyone agreed as well how important physical activity was. And doing something that didn't necessarily have to do with cancer, something that made you feel sort of normal. And they also encouraged him, if he could, to continue school. That did not work out because it was just too hard, because his chemotherapy was so intense. And that, I remember that day, Michael, I remember we also talked about this when we first talked about your diagnosis on the first podcast. But I felt for you. I was so worried that you were going to feel defeated, because he did try to continue online school in the beginning and he couldn't. And my biggest concern, I was like, but this is not a defeat. This is just, you can't do it right now. This is temporary. And that's been another one of our themes. A lot of times we've had to say to each other, okay, just because this is going on right now doesn't mean it's going to be this way forever. You have to remember this is temporary. Chemotherapy was temporary. Going through the bone marrow transplant, hair loss was temporary. There were a lot of things that we've had to say, it's going to pass. It's going to get better. Yeah.
Another huge mental struggle that I have to learn to cope with today is, as a cancer patient, one of the things is you don't get a break. Like, you can't take a vacation from treatment. And the ironic thing is, you can't take a sick day, because every single day is a sick day. So you have to get up no matter what and go to the hospital, even if you feel like you literally cannot get up. And one of the hardest things sometimes that you have to do is just get out of bed. Like literally getting out of bed was one of the biggest mental struggles, and just starting your day knowing that your day is going to be difficult and you're not going to feel well because there's no breaks. I see people who complain about their job or something like that, and I'm not saying you can't complain about your job, but those people can take vacations. I'm like, right now I want to take a vacation from my treatment, but I can't. And I'm sure every single cancer patient can relate to that. There's no breaks, there's no time off.
Yeah, I mean, jokingly, I'm like, yeah, it's just like a mom, no days off when you're a mom. But it's kind of true, but it's also not true, because even a mom can escape for a minute, and you can't escape from how you feel physically. So I feel that for him. There's days when he wakes up and I know he feels so bad, and I'm like, I wish I could just tell him, this week, the other day, I literally was almost like, you know what, I think we shouldn't go to the hospital. I think you should stay home and sleep and rest. But then,
in order to get better, you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah, it's just the irony of it. It's definitely, we also know, Michael started to say this, like we also know everyone has their challenges, like everyone. And the more that we have gone through this, because we meet people all the time, we meet people at the hospital, we always talk to people, because that's actually one of our ways of mentally coping, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is talking to people that are your caregivers. And that's been huge for us. And talking on social media and, all of that.
Spreading awareness and all that stuff, because everybody's going through something, yes, whether you can see it or not. And that's just been huge, because I look at people sometimes, and I remember I used to judge people a little bit when I was younger. I'd be like, why does that person look like that? Like, why are they so weak? Why are they like this? Like, they must have done something wrong in their life. And the truth is, that's not true at all. You never know what someone's going through. Just because somebody, for example, has hair doesn't mean they're not going through cancer treatment or that they're not sick. And I kind of want to talk about my experience after my transplant, when my hair came back and all of a sudden everybody's like, you're so healthy now, you look so healthy. Every single cancer patient know that once you're a cancer patient, you're a cancer patient for life. There's no changing that you had cancer, there's no changing you had this disease, and it's never really over. And even now I'm dealing with so many complications, and right now this is what I'm going through right now. I will say is more difficult than when I was going through chemo. The truth is, nobody really understands what anybody else is going through, because you could just see me on the street or see me somewhere in public. Well, I don't go in public, but I don't have the immunity. But if you just saw me walking around my block at night or something, you would think, oh, he's just a normal skinny kid. But I'm in the hospital 5 days a week with a chronic illness, and there's difficulties. So, Mom, how do you cope through all of this, seeing me get very sick, and then also you had a studio, you had everything, you had a job you were absolutely in love with, and I still see at you in the hospital, when you see a baby, you get so excited because it reminds you of what you used to do. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that has been, I love Michael's bone marrow transplant doctor, Dr. Galvez. He is beautiful because he really cares for Michael physically, mentally, spiritually. We relate to him spiritually and mentally very well. One of his favorite words is balance. And Dr. Galvez, if you listen to this, balance, yes, but there is not always balance. I believe in balance, and when we can, we have it. But for me, there was a moment Michael was diagnosed, and in the beginning, I did keep my studio. I taught the weeks that he wasn't having chemo. And then there was a point that I had to make a choice, and it was no longer balanced. And I had to give up my job, and I have no regrets. And it was not even a doubt or a question, but the family won, of course. Family and health came in, but it doesn't mean I don't miss teaching. It doesn't mean I don't miss what I did before. But coping has been trying to take all of my love and passion and music and dance and passion for helping people. And now, like, it went into writing, it went into videos with you, it has gone into, this podcast, it's gone into trying to help people, talking to people at the hospital. We have a big network at the hospital now, and even at we've only been there for 5 weeks, and we already have a network of people that we care about and that we've gotten to know. So I think that has helped me a lot, talking to people and sharing our story and being very open and vulnerable. And being vulnerable has been a huge part of our mental health. And hello, Brene Brown. Yes, I'm shouting you out because vulnerability has been our way of being strong, I think. Michael, just talking about being vulnerable, I kind of want to talk about your dad. We lost his dad to lymphoma 5 years earlier, and we should talk about that because what happened, Michael, to you when you were diagnosed? At first they said leukemia, and leukemia was scary, but when he got his actual diagnosis, the words are hepatosplenic T-cell lymphoma. And what did that word do to you?
It made me think of my dad, and it made it kind of personal to me, and it was mentally really difficult to know I had something that, I already knew I had cancer, but I didn't know it was lymphoma, and to know that it was lymphoma, the first thing I thought of was my dad, but I had to, remind myself it was different. I'm younger. I had to
because he died.
He passed away.
He passed away from lymphoma.
I actually talked to my doctor about it, and he told me, they're very different. They're not related at all, and it's just insane to me because now that I look back on it, a year and a few months later, my diagnosis is so much more grim than the diagnosis my father had, and it's crazy because I'm somehow still here and he passed away, and sometimes I feel not guilty, but
oh no, there is survivor's guilt,
it's a weird
course.
feeling, know that I had something that's not common and what he had was common and way more treatable, but somehow it didn't work for him and somehow it worked for me, and it's even a mental struggle every day for me just to know that. And in a way that kind of taught me, not to compare myself to other people in terms of, cancer treatment and things like that, because it's really different for everybody.
Yeah, even people that have messaged Michael and have gone through bone marrow transplants or have been his age and have been through a bone marrow transplant and they haven't had some of the complications or they've recovered faster or things like that. And
that was really, it's been difficult for me because, I'm 20 years old and I see other 20-year-olds who have, had a transplant, and it seems like they've all done very well after with no GVHD, less complications. And then one thing I always have to remind myself is every case is just different. So I had to learn to not look at other people and be like, well, they did this to this person and it worked, or this person's doing better, or this person's doing way worse, because I know those people who've had something that I've had or similar and they're doing way worse or didn't even make it at all. So, I learned that you cannot compare yourself to others, and I'm kind of going to start talking now about how I've learned to not compare myself to my friends because, after my cancer diagnosis and after my transplant, I kind of thought, okay, now I'm going to start recovering and become athletic like I was before. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to get my muscle back. And that was just not true. And it's just, I might never get my muscle back, And I just have to learn to not compare myself to others. And you should never compare yourself to others because nobody has been through what you've been through. And we're all individuals. And it sounds corny and it sounds like something you'd see on some Instagram post somewhere.
That has been a huge lesson about not comparing yourself to others. It's been huge. And his doctors gratefully often stress that because sometimes we get in a rush or we think he's doing better and he's going to meet the next milestone, and then we keep having to pause. And you are going forward, but we keep pausing, and just you're on a different timeline.
And yeah, it's just been really, it's been like 4 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's been very, gradual, my recovery. And, I remember my nurse practitioner kind of telling me, by this time you'd be going to the hospital once every 2 weeks or something like that. And it's been one of the lessons we've had to hold on to is you can't hold on to dates. You
Yeah.
know, you just can't.
Yeah. I mean,
You,
look, we follow someone on TikTok, and I remember we saw a post recently. She's like, "Yes, I just got the go ahead to go to the doctor once a month." And we're like, "Oh, that is awesome." And it is awesome for her, and that's amazing. Of course, we're happy for her, but there's like a little part of you inside that's like, "Oh,
it's
wow, once a month, 4 or 5 times a week
Yeah, and
still." But
sometimes you
it's
can't
okay.
help but look at other people and be like, how come they're doing so much better than I am? Did I do something wrong? Like,
That
and
is
then,
exactly what I wanted to talk about. We can't always understand the whys.
and yeah, there's just no reason why things happen. There's no reason why I got cancer. And sometimes people will be like, were you eating lots of sugar? Were you eating inflammatory foods or something like that? And I'd be like, you're joking, right? Like, this is just completely random. And, it can literally happen to anybody. But it
Yeah.
just happened to me. And that also is something that, you know, I struggle with. And there was a moment when I was actually a few months ago at home in my sister's room, and I was like, Mom, like, I want to go home. I want to go back to, my life before all this because I was so active. I was able to do everything I wanted, and I feel like I didn't take advantage of things already. I feel like I already knew kind of what I had, but cancer taught me even more. So, be grateful. And I miss, my old life all the time. I miss, being able to go in the sun without, having immense anxiety, being able to be around people without worrying if I'm going to get an infection, or being able to, surf, just having freedom. It's been so difficult to stay, positive, but one of the things that keeps me going and keeps me positive is this podcast, and just knowing that I'm going to help somebody out and they're going to listen to the story and they're going to be inspired to do what they can do. And I think the conversations we have, the relationships we've developed have been life changing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, even though it's been the most difficult few months and year of my life. I wouldn't trade it because I've learned so much, made so many connections, and really have found my purpose. And it's a huge mental struggle, but when you go through struggles like this mentally, it changes you and it makes you a better person. It's really helped me find my purpose.
Yeah, I have to agree. And going back, like, as a mom and seeing, as parents, we always say, to our kids, I want you to do what makes you happy. Like, our goal is we want to make our kids happy, or we want them to do what makes them happy. And I've definitely had to let go of that with Michael. But the pain and the struggle that I want to say that we've both gone through, but also as a family with his brother and sister, like, the pain and the struggle has also, I'm not trying to do false optimism here, or, that toxic positivity thing, but it is true that this, as hard and horrible as it has been, we have learned so much. And I just see, like, Michael and also Stephen and Jennifer, my other kids, like, have learned so much and have changed and grown. And when he has been, physically at his weakest, like, mentally he's at his strongest. And I feel that for the whole family it's been that way. And unfortunately, as humans, it seems like we learn best through pain and through difficulty. We don't learn when everything is given to us. And he has had to fight, and we've had to fight. And, we have found things that help us mentally, though. But that knowledge of lessons and everything we've learned and helping others has helped so much. Like, going back to what he was starting to say about that, like, our relationships at the hospital, our relationships on social media, this podcast, when you're helping someone, you really do help yourself. And that has been, I think, a huge
Yeah.
advantage, especially because the thing that has helped Michael the most previously in his life has been working out. And throughout chemo, even working out, even through bone marrow transplant, working out. And right now, I feel like we're learning, like, another mental lesson, because right now he really can't work out. So we have to find other things. And it seems like, helping others has been a huge thing that's helped, I think, both of us, right?
Yeah, it's been a huge thing. coping with this has been talking to others on social media, trying to do my best to spread awareness to this. And one of the main things every day when I'm like, okay, I have to get up and go to my treatment is I know the people there we're gonna have a great conversation with.
Yes.
And it's been amazing just knowing that I can cope through conversations and relationships, and that's one of the most important things I think mentally for anybody, and it's so therapeutic just to talk to people. You never know when the last time you'll have a conversation with someone is, and it sounds corny, but seriously, I've learned that you never know. So I always try to be positive, try to talk to someone, really see how they're doing and ask them how they're doing, because you also don't know what someone else is going through.
Yeah, we talked about that, but that's been huge, and everyone at the hospital loves him.
One of the biggest mental struggles was being on high dose steroids after my transplant, because I would look in the mirror, I could not recognize myself. I was working out, a good amount, I was physically active, I was eating well, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but when you're on a high dose, literally, I was on such a high dose that nothing I did could keep down the water retention and the swelling and the fat deposits, and it was kind of embarrassing. Like, my friends would come over, outside, with masks. I would wear a mask, and I just felt embarrassed to, look at them and be like, they looked so good and so healthy, and I was like so chubby. My face was, round, and it was so difficult.
I remember one. I remember one time one of them was like, "What have you been eating, Michael?" And I was like,
Yeah, my friend just asked me if I was eating more candy bars, but it was just like I felt embarrassed because I was working out, I was doing everything, and
that is one thing as well. Like, sometimes with cancer, I think sometimes people judge you and think, "What did you do to get cancer?" And that has also been a mental struggle, because he didn't do anything to get cancer. And
people talk a lot about preventative things. There's no way to really prevent something like the cancer I had. It's just random. Maybe you can prevent other types of cancer by eating healthy.
And you can do the best you can. And of course, I'm a total proponent of being healthy, eating healthy. Yes, don't eat refined sugar. Of course, eat fruits and vegetables. But this is how they grew up, and this was our diet. And, he didn't do something different that, made him deserve to get cancer. And he's a healthy eater, that's all I'm going to say. An athlete, a gym goer, happy, dances, does music, all the right things. But that just reminds me, and also just some of the things that have helped us so much has been meditation, yoga, music, dancing. Not that they're things we didn't do before, but they're things that have helped us, right, throughout this process.
Yeah, I'll literally just lay down on the rug after a long day at the hospital, and I'm like, Mom, can you just put on a meditation? I just sit there for 15 minutes, just breathing, and I just relax, and I'm like,
it's so important.
It's very important.
It is.
And it's helped a lot, because I can't work out or do what I was doing before, so I have to find a way to relax myself, and that's been through meditation, through reading, through writing, through making videos, and trying to answer everybody who messages me on social media, because I know it'll help them.
Yeah. And it's okay to break down.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
We earlier I mentioned toxic positivity, and being positive is good. And, we do look for the light, and we do look for the lessons, and we do spread, a lot of joy and love on purpose. But also, we break down and we cry and we talk about it, and we know the reality of how hard this is. And Michael does talk to a therapist, and that's good. That's so important to.
It is. And one thing also I want to say is a lot of people probably see us on social media all the time, and we're always smiling, we're always this, but it's true, like my mom was saying, I have a lot of moments where I'm not trying to sound negative, but I am crying, I am breaking down, I am struggling, so it's real, and I just try to smile because that helps me. I try to dance and do these things because I know it helps me, but there's days where it's not like that. but we do our best to stay positive through it all.
And we're lucky to be together.
Yeah, we're very lucky to be together, and mentally that's been huge to have someone like my mom to lean on, because she's basically my therapist as well.
But it is true, like the stronger together, and there's another balance for you. I when he has his tough moments, he can lean on me and I can help pick him up. And I try not to have too many bad moments in front of him, but when I do, I know that he's there too. And we do have a community of you guys listening to this. Like the prayers that are sent to us, the energy that's sent to us, the love that's sent to us. Believe me, when someone says praying for you or sending you love, sending you good energy, sending you good vibes,
we feel it.
We feel it. That is not fake. Like we feel your support, and that has definitely carried us. We are grateful for that, and I know that gratitude is another key to like happiness. We're really grateful.
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
It's been a key. Gratitude, mindfulness, meditation, yoga. Your kitty cat!
Yes, our kitty cat named Kitty. Yes, it's her real name. It's not a lie.
And Legos!
Oh, yeah.
Legos have been huge!
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest ways I've coped also, is building Legos. It's very therapeutic for me, and it feels like a little project, and then once I finish it, I feel accomplished. That's definitely helped, and it's still helping.
It's still helping. We're sitting here recording this, and there is a Lego set he is building on the table right next to the microphone, and that's good. The good thing with that is a lot of the things we do that help us still sometimes they circle back to cancer or bone marrow transplant or complications, but Legos circle back to
memories of being a child, and
kid.
Now memories to being a transplant patient, because that's what I've been doing the past year, building Legos, working out, and talking cancer with my mom.
Yes, and talking to you guys, and yeah, it has been a mental struggle, but we're lucky that we've been gifted a lot of ways to cope.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Really, the whole idea of this episode was just to spread awareness to mental health and just how important it is, not just for someone going through cancer or something like that, but for just everybody.
Yes, it is so important. And take care of yourselves physically, but mentally. And it's okay to talk to people.
Yep, and I'm always here to talk also, so yes, thank you guys.
We both like to talk a lot, if you can't tell. Thank you for being there, for listening. We truly love you. This episode was long. It had a lot of deep moments, but thank you for still being here. And hopefully the next episode,
we'll have a special guest. We'll just have to see.
And we'll be laughing maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.